Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the pits of Motor Chaos. It's your host, Dave. I got online special guest, drag racer, Tod Barker. How you doing, Todd?
Oh, we're doing good tonight. How you doing?
I'm just great. Happy Halloween. So Todd, did you ran at the Hot Rod reunion, right?
Say again?
I said you ran at the Hot Rod reunion a couple weeks ago.
No, we didn't get to run at the Hot Rod reunion this go around. We ran last year at the Hot Rod reunion, and we went to the March meet this year, but we didn't get to run this year at the Hot Rod reunion.
Yeah. How'd you do when you ran at the March meet?
Oh, at the March meet, we actually done pretty good. We qualified, I think, in the top 10, I think somewhere around there, if I remember right, and basically was able to run the number pretty good, but we got put out in the first round because we both fouled, and it was the only time I've been in a drag race where you could both lose in the first round. Kind of a crazy deal.
Yeah. So how many events did you run this year, Todd?
This year we probably ran about, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think we ran about 6 different events this year.
And how'd the car run pretty good all year?
Oh yeah, it ran pretty good all year. We ended up hurting the motor earlier in the year at one of the events in Denton, Texas, and we ended up pulling the motor out and putting our backup motor back in. We ran the rest of the year with that motor. But yeah, I mean, the old car it just runs. It likes to run, so it runs.
You ran at one of the funny car chaos events, right?
Yep, we ran at the final Funny Car Chaos in Denton this year. We didn't run the Mocan or the other ones because of scheduling issues and stuff of that nature. But yeah, we ran this the final event at the end of the year at Denton, Texas, just recently with the car.
Yeah, that's a good event that Chris puts on.
Oh yeah, Chris puts on an outstanding event with all of his Funny Car Chaoses, and luckily that thing is growing and growing. I mean, first year it was one. We ran at the very first one in Denton year before last, and then we ran at it again this year, and we've tried to make as many of those as we possibly can.
Yeah, I saw he just added San Antonio for next year.
Yeah, we've already signed up, but we're actually signing up. We've actually bought a an ex-Nostalgia Top Fuel Funny Car.
Oh, really?
And yeah, we actually bought the Nostalgia Back in Black 69 Corvette Funny Car that come out of California. It was actually a CIFA winner in 2004, and then it ran Top Fuel in 2006 under Dennis Chartier. And it got moved to Oklahoma about 8 years ago, somewhere thereabouts, and never did get to really run very much. And I seen the car about 5 years ago, and I remembered it, and I finally traced the owner down and bought the car about 2 weeks ago.
Wasn't Brad was driving that car, wasn't he?
Say again, I'm sorry?
I said, wasn't Brad driving that car last?
I don't remember who drove the car last. I just know this guy here in Oklahoma bought it, and like I said, he ended up bringing it back to Oklahoma, and when he bought it, it had no motor, no transmission, no nothing in it. But he ran it for just a short period about 4 or 5 years ago, and then he hadn't ran it anymore.
All right, so let me ask you this question, Todd. How did your whole career in drag racing begin?
Well, I guess it kind of begins when you're maybe 3 or 4 years old, and your mom and dad buy you a battery-powered 23 T-bucket car when you're back in the 1970s that runs around the house, and you're riding around on it when you're 6, 7, 8 years old. And from that point, you just develop a love for cars, and you can't get rid of the bug. So we basically, my dad, he drag raced back in the the 60s and stuff, and he had an old car, and he actually had a pickup with a 409 Chevrolet in it. And I grew up in a garage with grease under my fingernails and constantly working on stuff as a kid. So from that point on, we just basically grew into it until I got into high school. And whenever I got into high school, I had a 68 Camaro that we took the same 409, which had 6 deuces on it at that time, and put it over in there. That was an original 425 horse 409. And we dropped it in a 68 Camaro, and I drag raced it a little bit. And then we moved to motorcycles, and I drag raced motorcycles for a while. Till my mom seen me about stick one into the wall, and she decided then that we needed to buy something safer, so we went and bought a 23 T-Bucket Alter and made it into a blower car. So just kind of blossomed from that point on.
So how many different vehicles have you drag raced in?
Oh boy, that's hard to say. I would probably say we've probably had 6 or 7, 8, 10 or 12 different cars. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, we've bought several cars that we brought back from the grave, I would say, that were cars missing motors, that were old drag cars, or cars that were semi-running, but they wasn't making competitive passes. So we actually would take them and put them back on the strip and get them running and sell them off to other people and just kind of support our habit that way a little bit.
So now the car you're currently driving, is that a Willie?
No, the one that we currently drive is a 48 Anglia. It's a 92-inch wheelbase 48 Anglia.
And what do you got under the hood?
Right now we currently have a 427, a blown 427 under it. Best we can tell from friends of ours and people that we know on the whole, throughout the group, we've got friends that are in Scotland, Colin Miller and them. They run the Outlaw Anglia group over there in Scotland, England, and then we've got a group that we all run here together in Dirty South Gassers out of the South, and then we've got Southern Outlaw Gassers who run, and we run with the Geezer Gassers. So we've been lucky to be able to run this car with all the different groups all over the United States. They just basically have all opened their arms and let us come run with them on a lot of different events that go out throughout the United States.
So now, do you run that car with a touch of nitro once in a while?
Well, whenever we were at the Meltdown Drags about 2 years ago, 2016 was when we really campaigned the car real hard. We probably put 50,000 miles on the truck at that year, hauling it to different events all over the United States. And we probably went to 15, 16 different events with that car. But at the Meltdown Drags in 2016, we actually ran the car on about a 25% load of nitro, and there's actually a video there on YouTube where we actually launched the car on nitro, and it's kicking pretty heavy flames and everything out of it. But then it got into a wheel death wobble, and we had to shut the car down at that point. But even to this day, we still every now and then, depending on which event we're at and what we can get away with, some tracks will let you run the nitro, some tracks they frown on it. So we'll tip the can in it every now and then.
So now, Todd, besides your dad being an influence for you to drag race, were there any drag racers that were influential to you?
Oh, pretty much just everybody in the 70s and the 80s. I mean, I was one of those kids that got up on Sunday morning and we just couldn't wait for the wide, wild world of sports to start so we could actually watch drag racing. Every weekend you watched all the big boys, Kenny Bernstein, this Big Daddy Don Garlett. And luckily with the Anglia and all of our traveling, we've got to meet, a lot of my legendary heroes throughout Don the Snake Perdone, all those kind of guys. We've got to meet them and be around them and enjoy getting to actually be part of those guys and everything.
All right, now for the Anglia, when you take this car out, how many crew members do you have, and who are your crew members?
Well, we have quite a bit of crew people. We have one of the guys that we've got a 4-group type deal that goes with us most of the time, and most time it's Trammell Rushing, Butch Thomas, my son Alex. crew chiefs on the car, and then me. And for the most part, the cars are pretty well. This car here is pretty well, not too temperamental. We just basically do basic maintenance to the car and keep it running. And as far as pulling plugs between rounds and things like that, but we've had when we was in California at the Hot Rod Reunion in 2016, we actually was match racing with the Vizio truck out of New York, and we actually burned a spark plug in the motor and ended up hanging it in the exhaust valve. So we carried an extra set of heads with us, and lo and behold, we've changed heads out there in California. So we can do quite a bit of maintenance if we got to the car.
Now, currently, do you have any sponsors?
No, we don't have no sponsors. This is basically all footed out of our pocket and just for the pure love of sports, because you don't drive from Oklahoma to California and back for very little money. It's all because we love the sport and we love the fans. We like the people, we like the fans, and we like the drag racers. I mean, honestly, a lot of the whole entire deal is all about going and seeing your friends at the drag races again every year. I mean, you know, we develop relationships with each other and all of our friends that go, and we all support each other. And hey, if you need a part, we pull it off our car and give it to them to let them to make a pass. You know, it's just that kind of brotherhood and sisterhood that you get into with all the drag racers.
So how long have you been running with the Dirty South Gassers now?
We started with the Dirty South Gassers when they started their group. We were actually prior running with the Geezer Gassers, which is kind of a northeast group now, and we've also run with the Scott's Rods group that's out of Ohio. They used to be the Ohio Gassers, but now they're the Scott's Rod Gassers, and we ran with them even for a couple, 2 or 3 years. But since Chantel and Kurt have kind of developed the Dirty South Gassers here in the central part, it gives us a group to run with, because before there was just not an organized group in the south of Oklahoma and Texas, and with them guys stepping up and taking the helm of trying to organize that chaos, it's a big, anybody that runs any one of those groups are taking on a big load, because it is a big event to just handle that many people and getting them organized to the tracks. And you know, every one of them get a hats off from all of us for how much work that it takes for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we got a couple gasser groups that run over here at the track that's near me and my wife, the Great Lakes Dragway in Wisconsin. There's a couple gasser groups like the Midwest Gassers, and I can't remember the other one, but there's like 2 different gasser groups.
Yeah, I think there's one up your way that there's the AA Gassers that run out of New York and some of that area right up in there. That at one time Jim Audie was tied to, and then Jim Audie's group kind of pulled off, and they done their deal because they just run a no index. They run a wide open. Some of the other groups, you know, like Scott's Rod Gassers, they run a 560 index in the 8th mile. The Dirty South Gassers don't really run an index, but they just kind of match race each other, and they just kind of pick on each other. Other groups have indexes. Some of them don't have indexes. They try to do a B, C, D gas, and they put an index out there, and you got to run in that index. So everybody's kind of got their own little niche, and as long as it all works and it gets the racers out, gets the cars out, and gets the fans out, it's all good stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now, are you done for this season, or you got any more races coming up?
No, we're pretty well done for this season. We're actually taking the gasser with the way that the Funny Car Chaos works and everything. We're actually taking the gasser, the 48 Anglia, because currently right now the 48 Anglia, last year, it was at the end of last year, we actually got lucky enough to get some good track and good events, or good weather, and the Anglia right now, it best we can tell in the United States, it holds the record for a 92-inch wheelbase straight axle nostalgia gasser at a 172 mile an hour, 789 pass in the quarter mile. But their car's too much for my son to handle, and we're actually pulling the supercharger off, and we're going to put the injector stack on it, and we're just going to run it as an injected car, and he's going to drive it in the gasser class. And I'm going to actually drive the Funny car class.
So you're gonna have to get your funny car license.
Yeah, I have to get my funny car license because I've just got a standard. ET license. I don't have an advanced ET license, but it shouldn't be that big a deal. Like I said, the car, the back in black funny car, it was original. It went 604 at 240 mile an hour with a nitro motor in it, so it'll run the number if we need it to run the numbers.
Now you're gonna keep it on nitro.
I don't know right at the moment on the deal. Right now, we're going to drop a Chevrolet into it, a big cubic inch Chevrolet, and run it that way until we can figure out where we can find us a Hemi, and then we'll move the Hemi over into it, and we'll probably run a percentage of nitro. The nitro cars, I like the nitro cars, but the nitro cars for some of the tracks that we go to have a harder time. They're a lot more impressive, but they have a lot harder time trying to get it down the track. So I think a percentage of nitro does a little bit better in combination, and I think we can run it that way. I think we can run 25-30% nitro and probably be pretty competitive with the car that way.
Oh yeah, well, for Funny Car Chaos, they bring whatever you got to run for Funny Car Chaos.
Well, the wonderful thing about Chris Graves and that whole entire group there is, they made a rule, and the rule is it's got to be a funny car.
Right.
So that allows anything and everything to where you get to see a lot of neat stuff that you won't get to see at an NHRA event or this certain event or that certain event. They've left the rule open enough to where you can see. Well, the Final Chaos, we've seen a injected nitro car run with the supercharged cars, which was a real cool deal.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty awesome that they've made that in the way that they have, so they allow a Chevrolet to run with a Chrysler, or because it ain't about the money, it ain't about big money cars, it's about bringing the funny cars out, and you're seeing nostalgia cars, you're seeing alcohol cars, you're seeing people like John Hill who runs a nostalgia Top Fuel funny car, and he brings it to an event like that. So I mean, you get to see everything. So
exactly. So now, for you, with the Anglia, what was the experience like getting behind the wheel for the first time of the Anglia?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, what was the experience like for the first time getting behind the wheel of the Anglia?
That was a total different deal because I was used to the Alter that we had was a 125-inch wheelbase car, and when we first got the Anglia going, it was actually an injected small block car. And for the first year we ran that car, when you launched that car, you didn't know if it was going to go right or left or if it was straight or what it was going to do. So you was constantly driving that car all the time. And about 2 years into running the car, we changed it over to a red, white, and blue car. And then when we did, we changed to a blown big block. And that actually settled the car down, and it actually ran faster and was a lot more tame with the weight in the nose of it. And then we made a trip with up to Atlanta, Georgia. We got invited by Jim Audie to come up there with their group, and I got to sit there for a day and a half talking to Jim Audie and picking his brain. And I learned a lot from him just in that one weekend of how to make that car run because he was there when those cars ran. And from that, we were actually able to make the car step to the next level and make it run as hard as it ran. But a short wheelbase, 92-inch wheelbase car is a handful because an Anglia was never designed to be a drag car. It was actually, a taxi. That's what it was made to be. So to make it go 150 or 180 mile an hour, they didn't go watch them to run. They went to watch them to crash. Yeah. But we've been lucky. I mean, in the town that I live in, we've had a lot of big drag racers. I grew up around a lot of kids or a lot of guys that were my heroes, and they were drag racers. And our small town, as little as it is and everything, we actually have a Top Fuel driver that come out of our town, Scott Palmer. He's out of our town. So we've had a lot of racing history that come out of little bitty Marlow, Oklahoma. north of us is the guy that actually has the first trophy from NHRA, and he's still got it in his house about 8 miles north of our town, and they got his car over there in the NHRA museum. So a lot of drag racing history just in this little 30-mile radius that we're sitting in.
You said you're in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, we're in Oklahoma. We have, within about a 3-hour trip, I've got probably about 9 drag strips from me, to where I can drive to a drag strip just about in 3 hours. I can drive to a drag strip anywhere in any direction. So even this time of the year, I can go south and get to a drag strip and still get warm weather. And we've actually got my son drives a 80 model Monza, and we actually run a no prep deal with it. We're supposed to go to a redemption race here in about 2 weeks and down around Dallas if the weather will hold out. But the Anglia is done for the year, but we still have another car that we play with on other stuff.
Now, since you're from Oklahoma, do you know Paul with the Spirit of Tulsa, Nostalgia Nitro Dragster?
Yep, I know those guys.
Yeah, I've had him on my show for interview.
Well, and I noticed I was digging through some of your prior episodes. We know Jeff Cameron. We actually ran at the Amarillo Funny Car Chaos. We were match racing Jeff Cameron in his 48 Austin. So we know Jeff Cameron real well too and everything. So another nice guy.
Yeah, I had a bunch of guys from Funny Car Chaos on.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of good guys here in the South and Oklahoma, and I mean, of course, everybody, when you go somewhere, when we go to California and they hear you about you being from Oklahoma, they're like, well, yeah, but do you run the Street Outlaws? Do you do that with your car? And I was like, no, we don't take a 48 Anglia and run Street Outlaws with it. So we pretty much stay to the track with most of that stuff.
Yeah.
The Street Outlaw deal has brought a lot of light to drag racing, which is a real good deal, but there's still, the funny cars and the top fuel cars and things of that nature and the gassers. That's just a whole realm, and it's just neat when you can go to something like the Meltdown drags, and those guys put that thing on up there, and you walk in, there's 500 gassers sitting there, and you can just see one after another, and they're period correct cars. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to step back into 1965 or 1969, and there you are, and all those cars are just lined up, and you're just doing it like they did back then. So there's events all over the United States. If the fans will just come out and go to them and then see them, they will enjoy them, because it's just, those guys are doing it for the love of drag racing, because they're not getting paid nothing. You don't make any money doing this. You do it because you just purely love the sport and the people.
Right. Now, Todd, I got a question in the chat box on the podcast from Larry Ament. Larry Ament wants to know, how many Funny Car Chaos events are you going to try to make next year?
Well, my goal is to make every one of them that Chris puts up there, because we've got friends that live in Ohio, because we actually run with a 48 Anglia out of Ohio called It's Crazy, and he has another second car called It's Crazy too. So I'm hoping to make it to Michigan and go to that one, and then Illinois isn't very far from the Meltdown drags, and it happens about a week within each other. So we're talking about trying to make the Illinois. Now, all of the Texas and Oklahoma ones that they've gotten kind of scheduled up, those aren't going to be hard to make, but we're going to try to make every one of them Chris puts on the calendar.
I think you mean Still Crazy, right, that car?
No, it's
I know there's a
Still Crazy.
I know
Still Crazy.
Yeah, Clay Cunningham has Still Crazy 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Yeah, he gave his one car back to his wife, and now he's driving number 2.
Yeah, I interviewed him too, and I had the champion of Funny Car Chaos, Ken Singleton. I had him on. Yeah, nobody can touch him with that. Ken with the alcohol funny car, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. But
yeah, Ken will be the guy to beat next year.
Oh yeah. He. Well, we're gonna try to sit there in that bump spot between A and B group is where we're shooting for. If we can get in that bump spot of the A and B is where we're going to kind of stick our nose in there and play with it a little bit and see if we can actually kind of hang right there. Because I think it'll take a low four to stay in the hunt later on in the year.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of them guys that are running some 450s and 470s and stuff like that, but I don't think that number will hang. I think you'll have to get 430s, 420s to probably be in the hunt somewhat in the B group, and A group is going to be faster than
4.0. How did you come up with the name of your car?
That's kind of a crazy deal too. My dad used to have a boat, and he actually used to say the boat he wanted to put on the back of it. He wanted to call it Little Bit, and I always used to ask him because it was a jet boat. And I said, "Why is it Little Bit?" And he said, "Well, sometimes it's a little bit of heaven or a little bit of hell. You just don't know which it's going to be." And whenever this car came along, Little Bit just kind of fit the name of it. A friend of mine, Mick, who actually done the original pinstriping on the black car when it was black, we were sitting there talking one day, and I was telling him some stories about some junk, and he said, "You ought to call this car Little Bit." And I said, and my dad, he passed away in 2000, so I told him, I said, my dad used to say that name every now and then. I said, "I think that's a good name. We're just going to call it Little Bit." And it kind of just fell on the car, and that's the way it's always been, called Little Bit.
Yeah, it's nice. Tribute to your dad.
Yeah, because I actually have my dad's name on the right door. He rides with me whenever I'm driving the car, so that's why we've always had good luck, and the car's always went straight, and everybody's always wanting to know, how does that car go straight? I said, well, it just does. That's the way it is.
Oh, yeah, every time you run, he's always watching down.
Oh, yeah, he keeps an eye on me because a lot of my other friends that have got 48 Anglers, Jim Fissel, out of Tulsa, we've ran his car several times, and Jim had the misfortune to wreck his this year, and he's in the process of putting his car back together. But them cars they just have a mind of their own, and whenever they decide they want to switch lanes or do something else, you're along for the ride. It's like riding a tornado. You're just along for the ride.
All right, now Larry has another question for you, Todd. He wants to know how long before you can test the new funny car.
Well, we actually brought the funny car home, and this car had been sitting for quite a while. We actually fired that car up and the motor in it, and we're actually pulling that motor and combination out. I'm going to sell that motor complete, and we should be able to put the car back together, and hopefully early January we'll actually be ready to fire the car and actually go find someplace down south and see if we can make some passes with it.
All right, now for the Anglia, what goes into preparation to get that Anglia ready for a weekend of drag racing?
Really, it's not too bad. For the most part, we're able to basically just do our standard procedure as far as just maintenance goes. We just kind of, check the brakes, check all the stuff underneath, and we put it up on the rack. We actually check all the bolts and stuff, because every now and then we'll get a tire shake out of the car, and when we do, we got stuff that just rattles loose on it. So we'll throw it up on the rack, kind of run through it underneath, and then get it and put it in the trailer. We probably spend more time loading the trailer full of stuff to eat and sit around and talk with our friends than we probably do as far as working on the car. So it's probably trailer preparation more than it is car preparation.
All right, now what are some of your favorite tracks to run on, Todd?
Oh, Lordy. We've ran in Bakersfield, California. We went to Noble, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Mocan. I said Amarillo, I think. Denton, Texas, San Antonio. We've been to Atmore, Alabama. We've been to Indianapolis, Indiana. We got to go last year, thanks to Scott's Rods. We got to go to the U.S. Nationals and run at that event last year, which was a highlight of my life. We've been to Byron, Illinois, Bowling Green, Kentucky every year. We've been there about 5 years in a row. I'm trying to think. There's some tracks I'm missing, but there's several other ones that we've went to all over the United States.
Now, you prefer quarter mile or 8 mile?
I like the quarter mile, but I like the eighth mile. Both of them have advantages to each other, and we run both with the car, so either way is good with me. I mean, quarter mile's easier, or eighth mile's easier on parts, but the Anglia at 170 miles an hour is finally getting to the point that I think it's at its limitation because we have no wing or no nothing on the car. I mean, it's just as it is, and once you start creeping over that 150 mile an hour range, you're starting to push the limit of those cars by all means.
All right, now, where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
We've got a local dealer here in Oklahoma called White Racing. We've used him. We use Stroud in Oklahoma City. We actually use Good Vibrations for some of our blower restraints and items of that nature. As far as the bell housing or the transmission, we actually use Sullivan Racing transmissions out of Texas down there. We've used Freak Show in Abilene as far as for converters. We've also used Neil Chance for converters and stuff. But our safety equipment's kind of come from local sources because we like to keep most of our stuff as local as we can on all that kind of stuff.
So now, what's been the fastest run time you've had with the Anglia?
Like I said, the year before, or last year we went 789 at 172 in the quarter, and then we went 489 at 144 in Denton the next weekend. So that's been our fastest passes, and best we can tell, that's the fastest in the United States.
So now, have you reached any milestones in your drag racing career?
Oh, yeah. I mean, getting to really, I would say probably one of those is going to the U.S. Nationals. I mean, one of these cars, there's not any kind of class you can run in to take it to one of those national events like that and run in. So getting to go run at that, we went too fast because we were on a 560 index, but we got to go 510 at the U.S. Nationals and be up on the big board and all that kind of stuff. And, going to Bakersfield, running at the Hot Rod Reunion and running, the March meet. I just like the March meet a lot, so we like to do that every year. Those are all big deals. The Meltdown Drag was a big deal. We went there 3 years ago, and there was over 600 cars at that event. They had to actually start cutting the cars down on it. So we've been to all the major events that we like to go to, and so I'd say those are all milestones of my career, but I've never got to run a funny car, so I've got more milestones to go to with this next car that we're going to run hard.
Yep. Now, throughout your drag racing career, have you had any accidents or close calls?
Well, if you drive a 48 Anglia, you're going to have some close calls. We've had a few close calls with the Anglia where it's been sideways and some other stuff with it, but for the most part, I've been pretty lucky. I've actually kicked the rods out of them a few times, not on this car, but on my altered. We've kicked the rods out a couple times, and it just goes all over you, and you don't know where you're at. You just hold it straight and hope that you're getting it shut down. But for the most part, I've been lucky throughout my career. I've never set one on fire, and I've never knock on wood. I've got to find some wood, and done anything as far as that goes. But I usually, if it starts getting pretty hairy on the deal, I like to make sure I'm there for the next pass, and not to win that pass. I want to be around for the next pass. So I'll ease up, or I'll do what I got to do to stay safe.
Now I got another question in the chat box from Billy Jean asking, are you gonna run a clutch or a power glide for the funny car?
I'm probably going to run a power glide starting out on it. I've actually got a Lenco, and I can run a clutch setup. But I've noticed on a few of the funny car chaoses that we've all been to, that the advantage of the power glide setup is if time starts running short, they start hot lapping the cars, and the guys that are in the clutches are having a hard time getting the clutches set up and doing what they need to do between rounds as compared to the guy that has a converter. So I'm going to try it with a converter first.
All right. There's your answer, Billy Jean. Now I got some fun questions for you here, Todd. You ready for a few fun questions?
Yep, sure.
Do you have any hobbies outside of drag racing?
Hobbies outside of drag drag racing?
Yeah.
Oh, there is? Oh, I guess there is. Well,
yeah, fishing, hunting,
yeah.
stuff like that, you know.
No, we've got grandkids and all that kind of stuff, so I call them our entertainment by all means as far as outside drag racing. We've got a pretty large family and everything, so we do a lot of other stuff with the kids and stuff.
So now with the Dirty South Gassers, do you have a greatest competitor in that group?
Oh, it's all you know. That group there is all about guys having fun and everybody showing up, and they're one of the few groups that actually have a large participation because they basically like anybody and everybody as long as you got an old car and you want to come and have some fun. So it's not near as competitive of a group. I mean, there's some rivalry amongst each other, and they give each other a hard time and stuff. And then Jerry Lopez, he likes to come up from down in South Louisiana area, and that bunch down there comes up and helps us out and runs with us every now and then. So they like to give him some hard time and everything. But you know, it's all about that whole group. It's all about just everybody showing up and enjoying themselves. They can bring 50, they can bring 60 cars to an event. So that's why Chris Graves enjoys them coming and bringing the cars because they put enough time in between rounds for the funny cars to be able to do all their cooling down and getting their maintenance done to be able to go on to the next round and stuff. So it works out real well with that group.
All right, now throughout your drag racing career, have you won any trophies or plaques or anything like that?
Oh, we've won some stuff at some different events for setting low ETs and things of that nature. We got a cool trophy from Gasser Blowout. I think it was 6, 6. Gasser Blowout 6 for setting low ET. And then we got another one that we're supposed to have, but me and Jesse Holmes, we've had a hard time getting together. He's got another one for me because we set low ET at the last event that we went to. In Bakersfield in 2017, 16, 17. No, this was 17. Yeah, in 2017 we were number 1 qualifier in Bakersfield in B-Gas on the 860 index, which was a pretty cool deal because they give away a trophy for number 1 qualifier going into Sunday's elimination. Just a lot of stuff here and there, stuff is like that, basically.
Now, Todd, if you were able to do time traveling and go backwards in time, would you do anything differently with your racing career?
Pretty much absolutely not. No, I've enjoyed every piece of everything we've ever done, and it's led me to be with the people that I am with now and back then, and make the friends that I've made through all the years of doing the drag racing and enjoying it, stuff of that nature. It's like I tell everybody, it's a family event, and it's not just your immediate family. It's the family that you become friends with and are acquainted with. Everybody becomes family. We've got family up north. We've got family down south. If we want to go in that direction, we tell them, and we're coming to that in that direction. And people will say, "Hey, come by and visit us. Come by and stay with us." You know, it's just there wouldn't be anything I'd do any different. I've enjoyed every piece of it the way that I've done it, and that's a good thing. I don't have any regret.
All right, now Billie Jean has another question for you. What is your favorite track or event out of all the ones that you've been to?
Ooh, boy, you're asking a tough question on that deal right there. What's kind of crazy about them is a lot of the different events have a lot of different favoritism to them, so that's why I go to them. I like the meltdown drags because of the fact being that I get to see so many different cars, and there's 600 of all the like cars that are gassers and stuff there. But I like Bakersfield at the same time because I get to see a whole other set of cars out there that I don't get to see at any other event. Probably, though, my favorite track, if I got down to it, as crazy as it is I like the Denton track that's just south of us. I mean, I've got racetracks in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've got Noble, Oklahoma. I've got Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I like Ardmore because it's a local track. But probably my best, as far as enjoyable track, is it's a small track and it's kind of a small venue. And when the Funny Car Chaos comes to Denton, it's just like it rocks the house. I mean, it's there. It's everything you want to see.
All right. Now, here's an easy question for you. What's your favorite food to eat?
What's your favorite what?
What's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food?
Yeah.
My wife would tell you that it's crab legs because when we first went on a date together, she had to sit and watch me eat crab legs at Red Lobster for like 2.5 hours because it was all you could eat crab legs. He finally said, "Are we going to leave now?" And I said, "Well, I guess so." that would be her pick, and I probably have to say the same thing.
Okay. So what's your favorite beverage?
Oh, everybody that knows me knows it's probably Diet Mountain Dew. I can pretty much live on Diet Mountain Dew most of the time.
All right. Now, what you have a favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that would be a split. Probably it's going to have to be American Graffiti and Hollywood Night. Between them two, I can spend a whole afternoon and evening watching those. And me and my son, we love Hollywood Night, and my dad got me hooked on that one.
So, what's your favorite music to listen to?
Oh, we pretty much listen to anything and everything. I mean, in the garage, we've got a large shop, and in the garage we play 50s, we play 60s, we play 70s, we play 80s. I mean, we play it all. So I wouldn't say that I necessarily got one particular, but if I'm going to pick something, it's going to be something like in the 70s or the 60s, a lot of that stuff.
Now, can you think of one most embarrassing moment you've had on the track?
Oh, I've had more than one. So if I'm going to pick one out of the whole entire deal, that you probably can pick. Well, there's probably two you can pick, and both of them happened to be right out there at the Bakersfield March meet. One year I decided, because my son was helping me, and it wasn't his deal. He was working on one part of the car, and I was working on the front of the car, and I decided not to latch the hood down. So there's actually a photo in Hot Rod Deluxe and a couple other Hot Rod magazines where they call the Anglia a little bit the Flying Nun because the fenders flared out to the side, and it's going through the speed traps on the top end at about 165 miles an hour, and the wings are sticking straight out, and I'm racing Don Moyer, and Don Moyer sees me come by him, and he sees the hood fly out, and he decides that I'm going to crash, so he just goes ahead and steps on the brakes. Well, about the time we get to the end of the track, I throw the parachute out, and it comes out the back and hangs in the wheelie bars. And at that point in time, he decided I was going to crash, that he was going to have to watch me die on the end of this thing. And luckily enough, I got the thing shut down and come around the corner and pulled off. And there's a guy standing there, an NHRA guy standing there at the end of the crash. He said, "Well, that looks like a mess." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I guess you're done." I said, "Yep, we're done for this year. We'll be back next year." And he said, "Okay, we'll see you later, Oklahoma." So they even out there in Bakersfield, California, they know a little bit, and the Oklahoma guys, because they see us every year.
Now I got another question in the chat box from Pamela. She's asking, does your wife enjoy the drag racing?
My wife enjoys it most of the time. I mean, whenever it gets nice and toasty and warm out there, she kind of migrates to the trailer where the air conditioner stays. So at that point, she kind of disappears for the most part. But in the afternoon, she comes back out and everything. But she does my backup stuff. She's my bug girl on a lot of the different events, and she'll be out this next year. I told her, I said, you gotta kind of get a different outfit to go with the back in black funny car, because it's a total different look. Instead of the red, white, and blue from the little bit, we'll be an all solid black car with blue flames on the back, or on the front, I mean. So she'll be back in that car up this next year for all the different events.
Now I got another question from Billie Jean in the chat box saying, what happened to the door on a little bit?
What now?
What happened to the door on a little bit, the Anglia?
The driver's door. We were at the March meet this year, and we got at the very end of the track, and we were pulled off, and cars had not left at the end of the track, and on the right-hand side, we pulled off to the right.
Hey, Todd, hold on 1 second. I only get a 45-minute